As might is right and birthright and crown approval are law enough, Magnus. This ancestral blade I hold for mine and other fine families is my legitimate claim to all the islands of Orkney as their sole ruler.
My claim is the equal of yours, Hakon. Except the strength of steel is clearly with you.
I'm not going to listen to plea or bargain, cousin. You get the blade, I get the islands.
The execution of Earl Magnus.
There's another mosquito on the wall, dear.
I killed the last one.
All right, then pass me your sword and shield.
Oh, very well, I'll do it myself. I spent all day getting that wheedling sieve sharpened properly. I'll not have you dehoning it by slashing at midges on the palace wall.
Call this a palace? Drafty old slabstone place. Either get it grouted or build me one of those nice wooden long houses with a thatched roof. Nobody lives in the round anymore, Hakon. Good Lord, man, this place was built by the Picts.
Still good.
No, it isn't. Not when your cousin Magnus has given his woman the warmth of wood and thatch.
Aye, that's about all he's given her.
She has cold running water right by the hole.
Well, that's more for his use than for her convenience.
I sometimes think that you could use some of that treatment yourself.
Now then, woman, don't go starting an argument.
Well, do something about this place then.
I don't have money to pay for a new place, or time to do more than stick straw in the worst holes.
And you never will, for so long as you own just a half of the islands. You were a poor fool, Hakon, to let the other half go like that, without any real resistance.
The treaty has still to be ratified.
It has been a major blow to our standing to be dispossessed in such lifestyle.
I tell you, nothing is settled yet. Now go to sleep. I have a busy day tomorrow.
Did you kill that mosquito yet?
Tomorrow.
That's not really how it all began, but it's as good a place as any to begin. It is now that following day, and there's the saintly Earl Magnus at prayer. No, I tell a lie. He is mortifying the flesh in the sight of God.
You're mortifying again, Magnus, and you know I don't like that.
Get away with you. Am I to believe that all this suffering will be of no value in the hereafter?
I've already given you my word. You can come in, Magnus. What more sign of acceptance could you possibly want?
He's going to ask for a band of angels to hold the gates open.
The heavenly host to welcome me as I pass through the portals of paradise.
Well, it's more a small crowd than a host, and I had to recycle the gates years ago to create Iceland and the Arctic turn on the same day. A new pair is on order, but with everybody up here just walking about, welcoming newcomers and smiling all the time, it's difficult to get anything done.
How's the weather up there?
I created all the weather you get. That's how I like weather to be, Egmont. So naturally, it is exactly the same up here.
Did you create the winds that blow up the storms that knock puffins over? Did you make the waves that saw and chop the ocean till it froths madly? And then form the pentland furthest crescendo?
Yes, I actually managed to get all those things up and underway. Of course, I didn't anticipate man actually wanting to travel that heave of unrest, slop, and sorrow. The boat was an inspiration all of your own. Sometimes you're daring little beggars, that has to be said for you. Somewhere between the lemming and the lungfish, I would have put it.
You better get back to Magnus before he starts mortifying again.
Mighty and many are the sins I've committed against thee, Lord, and I would confess them all here in your sight.
Don't make such a fuss now, Magnus. Many is a word for megalomaniacs. Mighty, much worse has been committed already. Some sins are of such magnitude that the perpetrator must wander eternity naked, but carrying a flax sack containing his own weight in marble chippings before him. You're nowhere near that league yet, little ex-Viking recent convert. Give yourself a break sometimes.
I've recently broken commandments.
No, you haven't. I would have noticed. The transition from being a bunch of pagans to fearing my individual wrath makes ample allowance for a little lassitude and forgiveness of previous transgressions. Just be brave, Magnus. Today could be difficult for you.
I didn't come here to get my fortune read.
Can't amen that one, I'm afraid.
Amen. And then now we go back outside into bright sunlight and aboard a war canoe accompanied by 9 others and 2 old boats filled with Hakon supporters, spectators, undertakers, pilots, and some Moorish marauders who actually wanted to go to an entirely different island. Hakon seems a little tense.
Stop your whinge and whining, brother Sock. Your constant sour thoughts are beginning to get bloody irritating. I will seal my treaty with marvellous Magnus in any way it pleases me, and I don't need your encouragement or advice.
So you kill him then, 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 so you kill him then. So you kill him then, 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 so you kill him then. So you kill him then, 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 so you kill him then.
That's it. I warned you to keep your tongue still, little shite breeches, and you wouldn't take heed. So now I'm going to test the edge of cranium cracker here on your cretinous cranium over there. Or do I try the point of the sheep-spitting stick on your sitting spot? Or you can follow Havard. Do it now, and swim from here to any island you can reach, if the dragons of the deep and Grendel's mother's mother don't get to you first.
A very wise move, great mower of mean men. Throwing my brother off the boat like that gives us more space to row harder, and thus bring you to your destiny borne high upon the wave crest, created by your own spoon shearer.
My destiny is already there, and there isn't anywhere or distance there to give him cover.
Sorry, just a moment. We seem to have overtaken ourselves a little in time here. Before the aforesaid story took place, a strange thing happened to Magnus on the way to Ael's Isle, where sheep eating grass is the most exciting thing that ever happens. During those days when treaties are not being ratified, that is.
Well, men, I'm feeling quietly confident today that the outcome of my meeting with the noble Earl Hakon will clear up this tension between us for once and for all. Good islanders shall live once more in peace and security, to do their work and follow the path of sheep, not wolves.
Sit down, man. You're rocking the boat and we're over deep water.
At the very moment that Magnus sat, a whalefish of gigantic proportions, yet small enough to get itself into rousy sound, surfaced right beside the boat and fountained its breathy heat into the springtime morning air. Then that huge beast did directly dive and made off silently before Magnus's men had time to abandon their original mission in favor of the hunt. The spray from the whale descended, as must all things, and fell on the exact spot where Magnus now sat, and drenched him to the skin. 'Twas not a pretty sight, nor smell, but Magnus made the best of it and said it was better than a full-mast spit. This verifies the authenticity of my story, incidentally, because anything's better than being spat on by a fulmar.
Well, I never did. No, I have not seen such a thing before, and that after all my born days. Did you ever? A freak wave fell where you sat and brought a sad smell with it.
It is a sign that treachery is afoot. The hooves of Hakon's peace party hammer the glassy waves with a thunder like Thor's.
Get away with you, Magnus. You perch yourself so much. You are living in a perpetual hallucination. What you hear are the woes of warrior nibbling away at your exposed reality. Get a grip and get a decent breakfast, don't you, man? You'd feel the better for it.
The thought of food, combined with the dubious perfume of a whale's early morning exhalation, turned Magnus, who had never been a good sailor, a greener shade of pale. And that man, in his pre-saintly state, really began to have doubts about his ability to keep tomorrow's appointments. The whole number of those who sat close to Magnus were much relieved when their craft beached, and they were able to put some breathing distance between them and the anointed Magnus. Magnus walked alone over a hilltop until he discovered a clear spring. Being a thoroughbred repenter, he washed himself before he prayed and only drank afterwards. Then he prayed again.
Well, thanks for telling me everything in advance like this.
It was the best I could come up with, I'm afraid. The regulations regarding martyrdom are very specific in these circumstances.
You're sure all the connections have been made?
Angels, trumpets, and no cherubs, just like you ordered.
And the cathedral?
One will be built, bright and red and much beloved. I'll even throw in a couple of miracles for good measure.
Then I'm ready.
Good man.
Good. We have arrived at this point just in time, for here comes some hornet and scorpion stings in the shadow of Hakon's shield. Once safe across the sound, they beached the first 2-3 craft and anchored them to rocks ashore. They then tied the other ships to those so tethered, so that the remainder remained in deeper water and ready to leave in an instant. Earl Hakon's men made a dreadful din as they crossed to shore by climbing from ship to ship. It was hilarious to hear. It was hilarious to hear.
Clank, 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 clink, clank. Boom, ding, clank, clank. Clank, ding, boom. Clank, shit, down.
Bum, bum.
Forget the surprise attack tactics.
Magnus, curiosity aroused by the noise and clatter, and concerned for the safety of others, left his ablution and walked back over the hill and down to the spot where Hakon was still in a rage over the disorderly disembarkation.
It's bad to speak, but enough cowards still reigns amongst Hakon's men for us to live in the confusion. Magnus, come away now.
I'm not fully living in my fantasy, body old friend. I'd rather stand and face destiny than get an arrow in the back from a land-hungry lamb harvester.
Please yourself, but I stand here nearby you. My sword will not remain unsheathed should you come under personal attack.
Don't draw your sword and drag yourself into certain death on my account, old buddy. You would serve a more useful role by being a witness to all that occurs here.
You're a good man, Magnus, son of Erland the Gentle. I just hope your perception of the situation is survivable.
On you go then, cousin.
You've not done well, cousin, to bring such a large fleet for such a small harbouring. And your drawn weapons do not denote men come with a mind to use a pen as a treaty seal.
As might is right and birthright and crown approval are law enough, Magnus. This ancestral blade I hold for mine and other fine families is my legitimate claim to all the islands of Orkney as their sole ruler.
My claim is the equal of yours, Hakon. Except the strength of steel is clearly with you.
I'm not going to listen to plea or bargain, cousin. You get the blade, I get the islands.
A warrior's move against an unarmed man of God? You're going to have difficulty in explaining that on Judgment Day, Hakon.
The man who considers his immortal soul when he is born to rule over people and places doesn't deserve the space his blood washes.
If you refuse to care for it yourself, at least let me bear the burden of your sins before the Lord.
Is everybody full of sheep-shite today? Saintly Magnus, you soft Sutherling, you can bear whatever you like. I am ruler over all Orkney now, and you've changed from being a distant, should I say far removed cousin, into a cursed nuisance. I'd axe you right here and now, but that was the behaviour of our forefathers and would not be considered seemly nowadays.
Can you believe this? But 'tis as writ, believe me, and it gets even more absurd. Magnus is a about to make some offers leaning toward a naive masochism. Olympic gold medal for martyrdom possible here. And this fellow's grandfather was a Viking of the old faith. How things change slowly and all of a sudden, like an earthquake or cake baking and burning.
Give me 3 good reasons why I shouldn't end this right now without further dither and do. Offeek!
There are rarely 3 good reasons for anything, but I can offer you 3 soft upon the soul options.
Hurry up! We came to see blue blood flow freely, followed by a rapid return to a classless, stable society.
Ha ha ha! That's good, eh, Johnnykins?
For my first offer, I will give up all claim to the Orkneys, and take but my 2 ships and sail down to the Holy Land, to offer myself as steel and flesh wall against Jerusalem's invaders. I would promise never to return here, leaving you to rule in peace.
You have to be joking. How am I ever going to rest easy knowing that you were alive and around somewhere? It's not difficult to see your mind is easily misled.
Save your petty insults, cousin. This business now afoot is serious, not a mere mead soak. If my promise has no value, then my second offer is this. Put me under secure house arrest with one of our relatives in Scotland. Permit me a friend or 2 with me there to help pass away those years left to me.
And who pays to keep you in such cosseted luxury? A miserable squirm by a pathetic squirmer? No, whatever your third offer is, it had better be a vast improvement on the first 2.
I felt I should take the opportunity, insert an extra wedge of time, so to do. To explain? No, I see this is not the right moment.
My last suggestion then shall be this. For the sake of your own soul, don't kill me, but mutilate me in any way that pleases you. Gouge out my eyes, and lock me up in your deepest dungeon.
I did warn you.
These things you offer now are too tempting to resist, and I accept them as offered.
But that's not enough for Hakon's pack, and they now bay for blood. Hakon knows he cannot accept such simple release from the talons of Time's swift-winged and overfilled agenda.
I find my charity overruled by the majority's voice. The sword shall separate you from your life, Magnus, but it will unite the Orkneys to the island's advantage. Offeek! Ah, there you are, man. A standard-bearer's place is by his lord at all times. Where by blunder were you? Don't answer that. Here is work for you. Do it now. Take this sword and slay him.
What? This is not some snake in the grass that you suggest I kill. Magnus is a man of noble descent. I pledge to bury his standard through battle, but recall no clause or calling that I should ever act as an executioner. This task is below my rank. I'll not do that kind of dirty work.
No royal blood on your hands, eh, Offeek? Well, promise me more respect in future, and I'll relieve you of your damn duty now, and give the job to, Hilfolf.
Why me? I'm only the cook.
I've seen your axe and knife caress the carcass of many a sheep, Hilfolf. So now you can carve this Lamb of God. Any objections from you, and you shall eat your tongue whilst I am having your daughter for breakfast.
Don't cry, good man. You are only carrying out the orders of greater sinners than yourself, and through this act you shall achieve fame.
A fine fame I would give almost all to be without our Magnus.
I felt I should take the opportunity, insert an extra wedge of time, so to do, to explain, no, to relate my side of the story. Of course, I accept full responsibility for everything, including the odd shortcut taken to get Magnus in here. This used to be small stuff for someone of my rank. Now it's one of the last remaining management perks. Now then, even though I admit the overall responsibility here, and to spreading certain amount of psychological propaganda, the event and passions are of Hakon's and Magnus' own making. I just supplied the coinciding scenarios for fate to produce and chance to direct. If you stub your toe on a rock, blame yourself. The rock has already suffered your abuse. Next time, lift your foot a little higher and journey a little the wiser, stupid. What? Did you expect the rock to duck?
Kill me quickly, Cliffoff, and then as the nobleman, not as the thief of small properties. Take Hakon's sword, then stand before me, and bring the blade down hard on my head. Here. Here, take my tunic. It is yours by rights 1,000 or more years old. Put it somewhere beyond the splash of my mortal stain, and then get on with your job.
And that's what happened. Magnus offered his head obligingly, and Wolf helped himself to a page in history and a tunic of fine stuff.
Wing wind of the hooded crow against my eyelids. I awoke into eternal awareness, in a world of infinite detail, described in a resolution higher than perceived by any mortal eye. Tones and shades of tones no planetary light had known to show. Perspective, dimension, and proportion, all in perfect relationship and balance, one with each another. And this state of grace extended to infinity in every direction, from a place whose center was my point of perception. There, close before me, was the rock, gore-splashed, my blood, my life. With rain, under the pressure of a southwest wind, and for the whole summer long, the stain will wash away. Grass shall grow there now. I saw my mortal remains, raven-visited, carried across the causeway to my mother and the Church of Christ. From nave to altar, island to mainland, Bursay to Kirkwall, I saw I was removed these several times and more. I saw my mother mourn. But I myself was not moved, for I renounced my part in all such things at the touch of Cliffoff's still kiss there on Egil's isle. I am no longer concerned with history's vital threshing. This task is solely for the living. It is their heritage to halt erosion's creative urges and hold the squirming truth in its place. Interpretation and preservation be among you and remain with you. Amen.
Am I to blame for their beauty or not? Well, I'm glad that the story survived at least this long, pretty much unscathed. Erosion is no respecter of jewelry exposed, and fate, with all her fortunes, soon reduces every man to dust, no matter how precious the contents or the metal of his helmet.
A bloody pointless end to be making any kind of ending from, you'll agree. Ah well, the years will tell. He'll not be forgot, none of them will, because I already know that an Icelander thought to write it all down. Then again, what do those outsiders and ferry folk know? As a symbol, I wanted to hand you a small sheaf of the freshly mown hay, but it is yet a little early in the season, and many young birds are hid amongst our green and yellow meadows. Feathered tourists, regular visitors for thousands of years. So you don't get the bound meadow clipping or the smell of roses which I had in mind as an alternative means of saying farewell. I'm going to let you go now. I'm sure you'll find your own way home from here and have no more need of my time. Last one out has control of the lights.
"Aye," said I, to a moth close by my eye. "Watch out, there's a spider in yon corner." "I know," said he, "it's a very small spider." "He would be a lot bigger if he ate a juicy moth like you," I said sternly. Moth said nothing, but fluttered off to hold deep conversations with my herd of pedigree bookworms.
Slipping out of the shadows and into the darkness of night perpetual. The first stretch to locate the outer limits fails miserably. The touch to spark creation, or a feeble grope in the dark. The smell of oil on a warm aeroplane engine. To begin anew is to commute with time when all tides are well withdrawn and dross and obstacles have been removed. All things the same on each perceived dimension. You are not lost. There's no such condition as lost when the void is all there is. It's pointless, but to make a point, look back. The sun you shaded from your eyes is one of many suns, an undistinguished point of light. For the first time in existence you are without a choice. Infinity outnumbers you. Be here, be there, be everywhere. Omnipresence.
The VEC presents Fallowfield in Space.
Loosely rolled and easily drawn to on-tap desire, Fallowfield idled away the instants involved in the progress of passage. Whilst munching on a mouthful of plutonium pomegranate seeds, Fallowfield looked around, trying to assess the environment. But as he was unable to understand what was before his eyes, all he saw were the Watchers, robotic representatives of God, apparently hovering beside him in the sitting position. Mother Computer sat centrally, darning a chocolate chip-filled fairy cake, shaking a Glasgow cocktail, brewing tea, and, for a finale to this randomly selected list, eyeing Fallowfield's plight. She saw and understood. He didn't. So she took steps to implant the knowledge of all around him in him, that he might see or not as he chose. At the exact moment of this info implant, Mother Computer passed Fallowfield a mug of precise tea. It was very welcome, even if not absolutely necessary, as Fallowfield had taken the shock quite well, all Earth things considered.
Well, what do you think of it? Asked Watcher 3. I've never had a better cup of tea, answered Fallowfield. Mother Computer was pleased by the unanimous air of agreement. To celebrate, she took a break of 1/3 of a second to catch up on her reading and compose her 123,003rd variation on a theme by Prokofiev, arrangement by Satie. As she readied herself for resumption of being in complete control, she beamed her haunting melody out in all directions and to every edge of the universe. Now, behind a distant but extremely large cluster of numerous and bright red, yellow, and green pulsar stars was a rent in the fabric of the edge of the universe. Mother Computer's music spilled out through this hole into the absence of space beyond, causing a sudden and serious drain on her memory resources. Fallowfield imagined himself lying on a comfortable bed, and it was so. Instead of jumping up to look about in amazement, he relaxed into a light sleep, and did not notice, as the substance of the bed apparent crept up around his body until it enveloped him completely. Then, with imperceptible pulses, it repolarized all the muscle in Fallowfield's body and restored all damaged parts to full cellular function. Whilst Fallowfield slept, he dreamed of rivers with fish, air with birds, fire with stories, and hills with trees. This historical document was read from his dream and copied onto floppy disk in real time to make the non-revivable retrievable as a replica of reality. When he awoke, he was surprised to find himself with a skin like a month-old baby, and hair and beard down to his navel. Mind you, apart from the tickling, he felt absolutely great. Mother Computer realized something was seriously wrong when it took a little more than a nanosec to locate the address of the digestive. For those with an interest in those gigantic glitches that concern us all, herewith the relevant line list of what was going through a rapidly draining memory minding processor.
The only solution being to reveal who the living God on earth really is by having her visited by her direct superior.
I'll make a nice cup of tea for Fallowfield and then wake him by imitating.
Furrowing a feather substitute factory, millions will be put out of work and all birds will have
Jet X 50H 4BH 50H stroke Hatter snitted penguins.
hitting theories. Teaching to Penguin, version 7. Gauge set at 7 cohorts to new 143.
Immersion in the briny.
Mother computers will desist from self-imposed promotion based on self-imposed modifications.
Smile in a homely way when serving the spuds and custards. I think I'll have the central slave service room and it would look nice. All those colored wires in place.
The Easter and Christmas cakes have just completed their baking cycle.
I should prepare everyone for a landing in 4 seconds.
Fallowfield experienced the movement of the entire contents of his memory to a single cell 2 centimeters centrally from his left ear.
Not that I needed to make space,
Muttered Mother Computer to herself whilst smoothing the tablecloth.
but it's standard practice in these cases. It will become standard practice. This is the precedent. All rise for history as I make it.
The watchers began to reactivate, following their nightly rust and recharge sessions wrapped in electric blankets. With the experience of countless millennia, each watcher reattached the bits that had dropped off during the night. Mother Computer polished the warmed plate with a spotless tea towel made of earth cotton. She poured extra golden syrup and sweetened condensed milk into Fallowfield's porridge, and considered collecting an original barone for the space on the wall between the entrance and exit.
Although we are traveling at a little over the speed of light, Francis, we will be touching down in 3 3/4 seconds, so you best get yourself ready.
The following 2 seconds saw Fallowfield taking a leisurely shower and shave, and whilst he dried, playing a game of 3-dimensional poker in which he won 123 rubric threepenny pieces and a recital of the Lord's Prayer in emotional Flemish. As Fallowfield was the only one who ate, the watchers either sat and watched or entertained him. During this particular meal, Watcher 3 jammed an enamel funnel into its odor analyzer whilst doing a visual impression of the Tibetan national anthem.
You Earth humans used to be the funniest creatures in the universe,
said Watcher 6, wiping its manipulators on an oily rag. Now you see us as dangerous, I suppose, said Fallowfield.
No. Well, yes. But more accurately, we recently visited a planet where the funniest things you ever saw happen,
said Watcher 3. Fallowfield took his nose from his tea mug and asked if he would be visiting that planet. More precisely,
We're down,
sang out Mother Computer. Thank goodness for that, said Fallowfield. For a moment there, I thought one of the oxen had gone lame. Despite their well-programmed anticipatory nature, the watchers were quite unprepared for Fallowfield's deft display of Dada think, and disassembled directly to demonstrate beyond further doubt the lowness of their humor threshold. There were bits of watcher from one still visible side of the ship to where the other side probably was.
You shouldn't encourage them, Francis,
scolded Mother Computer mildly, as she set about the task of juxtapositioning each of the individual parts that were, when assembled, a watcher. Fallowfield saw that the pieces of an assembled watcher were not jointed or attached to one another in any apparent way, and, though minute, the space between the numerous bits was clearly obvious.
We see you in the same way,
said Watcher 3, pulling the last bits of itself together, itself.
except the millions of little units in your construction are closer together.
I
entered another watcher.
You humans were designed in the days when they knew how to put bodies together with such skill it was almost impossible to detect steams and spaces.
It droned on in an accent which appeared to have become distinctly Scottish in nature. The effect was heightened by the addition of an audial impression of a distant piper in a steep-walled valley by Watcher 3.
Now look at me,
continued Watcher 6.
I am union of 9 systems, each containing 23 subsystems. You could drive a Martian monorail through the space between my stomach and my gyroscope, and I clank when I move.
Yes, but at least it's really easy to replace any part of you that goes wrong, Six,
said Mother Computer, placing a red queen on a black king.
Well, I still miss the charm of having to have my nostril hair trimmed,
said Watcher 3, and went to a control panel on a column centrally positioned and connecting the ceiling and floor, which had the appearance of being made of a 2-meter diameter section of fast-flowing water. It manipulated a control or two on the panel, and the ship materialized around them. Fallowfield looked out of a porthole.
It's dark out there,
he said.
You're not wrong,
said a watcher with the numeral 1 etched in the area where you and I wear frowns.
This is Farley, where, unlike your planet, humanoid is the dominant life form.
They are very bulky beings,
said Watcher 3.
We call them dunks, because they are very dry if taken without a cup of tea. They have zero humor themselves, which makes them extremely funny to observe.
One thing is especially unique to the patient occupants,
said Watcher 4 as it trundled over to join the discussion group.
such as their desire to keep everything about their planet a secret, that they actually go so far as to rapidly rotate the planet as we approach, to ensure that wherever we land, it's the middle of the night and the center of nowhere.
So, said Watcher 1 with a deliberate slur in its vox box,
the last time we visited, we made our ship appear twice as bright as their sun, and by overriding their machines, landed in the middle of their largest city.
And? asked Fallowfield.
Well, for a long time, nothing.
Said Watcher 4, continuing the story.
Then, after a good quarter of an Earth second, an old male dunk wearing a welder's mask walked over, took a deep breath, and said,
Dictate slowly, please. Nobody has sharpened the chisel since Moses used it, and the hammer is being used as a model by the planet's artists.
Suggested Watcher 3, and did a potted impression of a god's anger at being disconnected for not paying his communication bills.
He said,
continued Watcher 4, giving Watcher 3 a laser bolt to the upper arm. Oscillated the injured Watcher 3.
He said,
the reason I'm here is to discover the reason I'm here, suggested Fallowfield.
He said, don't forget to take any litter you make with you when you leave,
interrupted Watcher 1, hiding behind Fallowfield.
No, he said.
The Watcher then switched to authentic voice copy readout and continued,
Since your arrival here, the Central Committee for Many Things, All Affairs and anything else we might have forgotten has passed a law which disexists you. The law itself has a built-in disexist clause. The penalty for disobeying the letter of this transparent law is death by dematerialization for the first offence, with progressively more severe punishments for subsequent transgressions.
I asked him why he was wearing the welder's mask,
said Watcher 6,
as I was hoping to see some local technology. To that he answered that his was not to question why, because a smart inquisitive dunk was soon a never was dunk, he had been told. So, when issued with a welder's helmet and told to wear it constantly for the duration of our visits to this planet, he did so. Actually, I doubt whether the fellow knew a thing about welding, now I come to think about it.
Watcher 4 took up the story again and told of how, at that moment, the old dunk was interrupted by an armed, uniform-bearing body, complete with a memorized set of instructions. This soldier was taking shelter behind a goat that had wandered onto the scene. This goat ate law books for breakfast, with no apparent ill effects.
Hoi, dung beetle, have you finished? The soldier shouted at the old one.
Said Watcher 3.
3. You don't have to be so explicit.
Scolded a slightly shocked Mother Computer.
The old dunk answered, yes, thank you.
Continued Watcher 3, whilst poking its taste analyzer in the direction of Mother Computer's back. What happened then? Asked Fallowfield. And then? Did I really ask that question?
Said the soldier. Then, realizing that the welder's helmet reduced to ridiculous the knockdown power of his voice, he pulled the trigger on his hand weapon.
Related Watcher 4.
Push! The old one disappeared in a cloud of water vapor.
Said Watcher 1.
We rematerialized him.
Said Watcher 6 with some small element of pride in its voice.
The soldier fired again.
Said Watcher 3.
And he was back.
Watcher 4. Watcher 1. Watcher 6.
Help! Shouted the old dunk.
Watcher 3. Watcher 1.
Back again!
Watcher 4. Watchers 3 and 6 in harmony. Watchers 1 and 4.
The old man shouted, stop!
Watcher 3. Watchers 4 and 3. Watchers 1 and 6.
Archer ammo!
Shouted all the watchers in unison.
We brought the old one inside, wiped his nose, gave him 2 post-travel sickness pills and a mug of tea.
Said Watcher 1.
We dragged the soldier to the center of the spotlight we threw, and there, whilst he stood perfect military attention, we reduced the size of his underwear by half.
Watcher 4.
He now directs movies for the propaganda machine.
Said Watcher 3, and everyone on board laughed a little longer. Mother Computer concluded the story by saying,
The whole thing put the taste of sludge in the potentiomate, so we left, leaving the spotlight on. Now our visits are reduced to ritual, I'm afraid. You might find it quite amusing, though, Francis. Do feel free to ask any questions you might have.
Thank you, MC, said Fallowfield, and switched the spaceship walls to the 93% transparent setting. Fallowfield watched as the ship descended on retro rockets onto the spotlit center of a paved square so extensive in area that the curvature of the planet could be observed on all horizons. Within moments following their touchdown on the surface, the spaceship was surrounded at a distance of 8 common kilometers by a ring of 444 mechanized cannons. The proportions of the weapons had been developed to hopefully avoid intimidation by anything that might happen to fall out of the sky. Every gun appeared to point directly at Fallowfield's stomach. He sat and watched as 444 fingers found the fire button. 444 computer programs written in the language C took control. 444 shells, each with 4 sub-super-heavy neutratomic nerve-scrambling gas warheads sped toward him, only to stop a few meters from the ship, fall to the ground, and dissolve into a good, rich compost from which instantly grew roses of red and white crystal.
Stage 2,
said Mother Computer, and yawned as she tidied her duster drawer. 444 fingers found the repeat button, and pressed with a determined delay in the down position. Shells described calculated trajectories, only to fail and fall, then rapidly metamorphose into natural manure to fertilize and multiply the flowers growing there from the previous bombardment.
Stage 3,
said Mother Computer, and gave Watcher 4 a signal to press the button marked Chastise. With a severe grinding sound, eyelid-shaped doors slowly opened in the dome on the top of the Watcher's spaceship. Accompanied by a fanfare of the simulation of 1 billion silver trumpets, there arose from the dome an acoustic analog bullwhip with digital servo motor control in the safe chips of the operating system of a BBC Model B computer. The computer gave the nod, a micro switch changed its leanings, and the whip cracked. Every dunk stitch, joint, weld, rivet or bolt within sound range became undone. The dunk's weapons disassembled, leaving the cannon crews looking sheepish.
Stage 4,
sighed Mother Computer, and signaled Watcher 4 to go over to and open the door, but leave the access ramp in its housing. From the dunk ranks, the remnants of a heavily armored greatcoat marched stiffly forward. The upper half of the coat was decorated with gaudily colored strips of cereal packet, with an aluminium milk bottle top attached to each strip by means of a length of clearly unruly sticky tape. Watcher 4 took up position in the center of the doorway. It caused clouds of purple steam to issue from the seams in its outer units at precisely the moment when Mother Computer switched on a gigacandle halogen light directly behind him. It then caused itself to grow vertically by 300% in the shape of a dunk embryo, and then return to normal size with just enough ephemeral to avoid wordy description. The dunk beneath the greatcoat tried to do what he'd been told was his terrestrial duty. The upper First Marshal had spoken to him personally before he had left.
Try and see yourself as a maiden being fed alive to a particularly nasty dragon,
he had said comfortingly. The dunk assumed the manual prescribed stance for awaiting instructions, doomful.
What's your name, then?
asked Watcher 4.
I'm only allowed to give you my number,
said the dunk.
I already got your number. What's your name?
I don't have the data necessary to answer this question.
Then, Dunk, you still have a lot to learn,
said Watcher 4, and all inside the spacecraft laughed.
What are your orders?
asked the dunk, remembering his.
All tea breaks to be extended to 23 minutes, and keep on practicing speech,
said the Watcher in omnipresent voices. Then Watcher 4 handed over 7 magazines with photographs of attractive members of a life form exposing, displaying, and touching those parts of their bodies concerned with reproduction. The magazines came from Hargarfar, where all life evolved from a cheap plastic imitation of a bowl of shark's fin soup. To earthling eyes, the photographs would appear to be poorly posed undercooked chicken legs, with or without a white paper ruff around the joint where the lower leg was ripped off at the elbow. In exchange for the magazines, the stunned dunk passed over a bottle of fermented ox urine. All transactions and ceremonies being over, the doors closed and the ship was on its way again, this time turning out the light behind them.
What are you going to do with that? asked Fallowfield, pointing at the dubious gift.
We dump the contents in deep space, wash out the bottle and get tuppence back on it on the next planet,
said Watcher 3, and turned itself into a video game where it played itself twice against itself and lost all 3 times.
I need to knit a patch to repair that hole in the skin of this universe,
Remembered Mother Computer.
I have a little job for you, Francis,
she said. Fallowfield held the skein of white Icelandic wool for Mother Computer to roll into a ball, whilst she, back through the wool in his hands, began to relate all of the knowledge of the universe.
I'm looking forward to this,
he thought. Fallowfield in space. By Rodney Stephen Summers. This was a sonoration produced by VEC Hamburg for VEC Audio.
Firsts of the Obscure. The depths of the letters that make up the words that fulfill the sentences which complete the story. The pitch of the voices that carry the signals that constitute rational agreement. No art cars anymore, and as for forever, never again. The arrogance of belief that time stands still around the period in which we find ourselves circulating. History lies awaiting a decent burial, and I'm standing here on boundless granite with a kiddie's bucket and spade. Without the scribe, a page remains unimpressed. Without dimension, the word is monochrome and the sentence diffuse. Without the sky, the bird is empty. Destiny isn't everything.
Lord, I send to you my reading of the poem The Days of Awkward that I translated into Ukrainian for you. In 1992, I read in this translated your poem in the Central Person Poetic Club, where your poem was successful. Now I read aloud This poem in Ukrainian. Важкий день. Господь у часі помилився, створюючи поспіхом світ. Навіть якщо б він дав клятву, що ніколи не робить помилок. Рибка виплигнула у повітря, уся зелена від кольору моря. Чудово бути живою істотою, але повітря не її стихія. Чудово вміти рухатись, але її м'язи не пристосовані для прогулянки по твердим камінцям і піску. Поблагати б допомоги від когось, але рибка не може розмовляти. Чайка стрімголов падає на цю рибинку і хапає її, злітаючи догори. У неї нема милосердя. Рибка виривається з пазурів чайки і падає в море. Але ця чайка ще раз кидається на неї, схопивши бідолашну гострим дзьобом. Який жах! Вирватись, назад би в море, туди, сюди, круть, вверх. І ось нарешті рибинка вся змордована впала в море, щаслива, що залишилася жива. Отаке бува, нудьга. І я, у віддаленому пункті спостереження, не звертаю уваги більше ні на що, щоб сподобатись тобі. О, Господи!
Thanks, Alex. Here's how it sounds in God stumbles through time, blind from self-righteousness, though he swears it to be a congenital impediment.
God stumbles
A
through
fish
time,
falls out of the water,
blind
green
from
from the blue-green.
self-righteousness.
Tries to breathe, but the atmosphere lacks density. It tries to move, but its muscles were not designed
A
for
fish falls out of the water,
gravitation.
green from the blue.
Tries to drink help from
The
passers-by,
atmosphere
to no
It tries to move, the muscles
seagulls snatches it up, and not as an act of charity. Carries it back, bags over
it tries to back it up.
This bird is screaming blue murder and base robbery.
A seagull swoops and snatches it
Fish
up.
drops all the way back into
Screaming blue murder and base robbery.
I'm at this distant observation post, making no notes of my
All the way back into the sea. Bruised and shaken, but still alive. It rejoins the shore. None the wiser for experience. Back off, Big Grey. I'm at this distant observation post and making no notes for the likes of you. Go green for me.
Interruptor del universo. Antes de dar luz a nuestro personal, érase una nada que no será más. Ahora todo se cree a sí mismo el centro del, por lo menos, infinito universal. Hasta la próxima vez que el interruptor se vuelva a conectar. Yo era el perdedor de varias rondas consecutivas, de un cerebro herido en combate con la gripe. Dolorido de la cabeza a los pies, masticaba dormido mis mocos, hasta que, vaya, pensaba, como si ya me ahogara, que el calvario era un rumor cristiano, y mejoré tan pronto como pude. Usando un poema por termómetro, me supe, en los últimos días de vida terrenal, una ciénaga.
Everyone on Earth must register at their nearest community center to be injected with the antidote to the toxic chemical about to be released into the atmosphere to eradicate those who did not register at their nearest community center to be injected with the antidote. Subtitram DRRM, the toxic chemical about to be released into the atmosphere to eradicate those who did not report to their nearest community center to be injected with the antidote to the toxic chemical about to be released into the atmosphere to eradicate those who did not at their nearest community center to be injected with the antidote to the toxic chemical about to be released into the atmosphere to eradicate those who did not flim your frut register at their nearest community center. Everyone on Earth to be injected with the antidote to the toxic chemical about to be released into the atmosphere to eradicate those who did not register at their nearest community center to be injected with the antidote to the toxic frut chemical about to be released into the atmosphere to eradicate those who did not register at their nearest community center to be injected with the antidote to the toxic chemical about injected with the antidote drum to the toxic chemical about to be released into the atmosphere frut to eradicate those who did not register at their nearest community center. Everyone on Earth must be injected with the antidote to the toxic chemical about to be released into the atmosphere to eradicate those who did not.
Far too serious. 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 Far too serious.